Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's lecture on deep learning. Today being Friday, today it will be a theory lecture and that will be taken by Padmavati ma'am. Good afternoon, ma'am.
Good afternoon, Sakshi.
Ma'am, I have given you the right so that we can start with the session.
Yes, thank you so much.
Welcome.
Is my screen visible, all of you? Is my screen visible?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. Let's start the next topic. Today's session is seventh session based on the theory part that we are counting. Till now, we have completed 6 sessions, theory sessions, and 3 practicals, right? So let's go ahead with the theory session. In today's class, we will discuss about just the introduction of convolutional neural network. Why we should shift or why we should learn convolutional neural network? Why not to continue with the feed-forward neural network, or that is simple architecture of deep neural network, right? As we have discussed with very simple example, okay? For example, if I take 28 cross 28 image input size, that is that you all might have executed by this time, okay? You might have tried in your practical class also with the input image of size 28 cross 28. With such a small input image, what is the drawback is if I compute or if I design the neural network with feed-forward neural network, and with very small input size also, we need to compute, or the system need to compute the n number of parameters, and that n is very big in number, correct? Big. Why so? Because every neuron in the first layer, or in the from the input layer onwards till the output layer, okay, every neuron in each layer is connected with every other neuron in the next layer, correct? That is the main problem with feed forward neural network. Why so? Why it is the main problem? If they are connected, then it is good, right? Learning wise, yes, definitely, but otherwise number of parameters will be increased. Okay, when we do back propagation, when loss is high at the end, and when we try to do the back propagation, then the number of parameters that the architecture or the model that need to be learned, okay, those will be very high in number. So that is why we say that in simple feed-forward neural network, every neuron is connected with every other neuron. So number of parameters that it needs to learn are high in number. Okay. So even though that backpropagation is done by the framework itself, but why not to continue with that? Because of the overfitting problem. They small, for example, if I train with feed forward neural network, every neuron is connected with every other neuron in the next layer. What happens? My training, based on the trained input data set, it will try to give the good result on the trained data set. Whereas when we work with test data, then definitely there will be a problem, right? Why? Because it may not, my neural network may not give good result, good accuracy for tested data. Okay, and we have seen why it happens, because it happens because of overfitting problems. Okay, so now how do I, so the problem here is because my network is densely connected. Because of the densely connected network, it need to learn many parameters. Because it has learned many parameters, it has overly learned my all my training images, correct? As it has learned all of my training images perfectly, so it has learned the parameters for to fit my parameters correctly, right? So the overall disadvantage of this is definitely one is computationally it is very expensive if we do feed forward neural network, because in the last class we did with very few neurons, very few layers, right? But in practical cases, what we need to do is with high resolution input data, we need to perform high number of computations, because in each layer we may need to have hundred thousands of neurons, and we may have n number of neurons as well as n number of layers in each of the layers, right? For example, we may have thousands together layers, and each layer we may have 2000 number of neurons. So in that case, these number of parameters will be very high. As the number of parameters are high, so it has learned our like learned our training data accurately. But a very small modification in my training data, if I provide it at the test time, okay, only with a small modification, it may not work properly because it will lead us to the errors. Okay, so to reduce that overfitting, what we need to do is we need to think of some other alternate neural network which are available. So can we reduce the number of parameters? Here is the question, and definitely we can reduce the number of parameters, learnable parameters, with the help of convolutional neural network. Okay, with this background, let's start with the convolutional neural network. Before that, we need to be able to differentiate between feed-forward neural network and convolutional neural network. Feed-forward neural network, as we have seen, we will be having dense connections, okay? Whereas in convolutional neural network, because we don't want to have dense connections, we don't want to use so many parameters, okay? For that sake, we have introduced some other or type of neural network, that is convolutional neural network. So convolutional neural network has sparse connections, right? The number of learnable parameters are too high in case of feed-forward neural network, whereas number of learnable parameters are low in case of convolutional neural network. That is why the shift is required from feed-forward neural network to convolutional neural network, right? Let's see how many parameters that need to be learned in feed-forward neural network. Okay, so when we see number of parameters, learnable parameters which are required just for these two layers, okay, we will see how many. First of all, we will compute how many learnable parameters which are required for this particular data. Okay, my input data is, we all know it is, again I've taken the same MNIST data set, and that data set has the size, each image has the size 28 cross 28. Fine. So let's try to understand how it works. You all might have implemented by this time the program. Okay. This is my input. This is my input layer, right? This is my input layer. And how many neurons in the input layer? Can anyone tell me? For MNIST data set? Okay, so 28 cross 28 comes out to be 700 and quickly compute and let me know how many it will be. Yes, am I audible?
Hi, yes, 784.
Yes, that is 784. Output unit, it should be, it is hidden layer, first hidden layer. And after this, we do have output layer. So these are 784 in number. These are, I have already mentioned, it is of 256. 256 in number, whereas I have output with, I have mentioned here, second layer has 10 units. Okay. Here, let's try to understand why we say it as dense layer, because when I do this 28 cross 28, so it comes out to be 784. 784 neurons we do have in the input layer, correct? That means if my matrix is this, this is 28 in number, this is 28 in number. So the value of this cell, the value of this cell will be moved to this. Similarly, the value of this will be moved to this. Similarly, the pixel value here, I'm saying the pixel value of this, the third one will be moved to here. Like this, each individual neuron, each in this particular input layer has 784 values, correct? So in this from this particular first neuron, it will connect to first hidden layer. Similarly, second will be connected to first. Similarly, third. Similarly, fourth, and so on till the last will be connected to this. Okay, and the second hidden layer, second neuron of the first hidden layer, only one hidden layer, so let me call it as a hidden layer. Second neuron will also be connected with all the inputs. Correct? Third will also be connected with all 784. Fourth will also be connected with all. This is what we have discussed when we started with feed-forward neural network, right? So my input layer has 784 units. Each unit will be connected with next layer, right? And this hidden layer, okay, every neuron in the hidden layer will be connected densely with the previous layer as well as with the next layer, right? So quickly, someone tell me how many hidden layers, sorry, how many number of connections that we require from first layer, in the sense input layer to the hidden layer.
It's 200,704.
Okay. How you have computed?
I multiplied 784 by 256.
Right. So it should be 784. Okay. 784 multiplied by 256. Do I need to add something else also? Why 784 into 256? Is this clear? Because every neuron in the hidden layer from the input layer is connected with every other neuron of the hidden layer. Hence 784 into 256. Plus I also need what is called bias. So let me know the bias value for this problem. What should be bias value? Bias value should be 256. Why bias value should be 256? Because this is the weight matrix, correct? This is the weight matrix. That means this is the weight matrix that we have discussed, correct? This layer will connect with this neuron, okay, will connect with this. Similarly, this neuron will be connected with this also connected with this. Like this, every neuron of my input layer will be connected with every other neuron of my hidden layer, right? Hence, 784 units of the first layer will be connected with 256 units of the second layer. For example, first unit will be connected with 256 units of the hidden layer. Similarly, second neuron, second input hidden layer of the second input will be connected with all the neurons of the hidden layer. Similarly, third will be connected with all the neurons of the hidden layer and so on. Like this, all 784 will be connected with 256 neurons of the hidden layer. And why this 256 is required? Because I also should be able to add bias term to each of the neuron of the hidden layer. Okay, so for how many hidden layers we have? We have 256 hidden layer. We have 256 neurons in the hidden layer. So many units I require from the bias, right? So for that sake, one bias value will be moved to first neuron. One bias will be added to the second neuron. One bias value will be added to the third neuron and so on. When you see the connections also, we have seen the architecture. This was my input layer. This was my hidden layer, and I've shown this dense connectivity in the last sessions, right? Right. Also, one bias term will be added to this. One bias will be added to this, and one will be added to this. Correct. So for that sake, we need to add this 256 as well. Fine. Similarly, how I need to compute number of parameters which are learnable parameters. How many parameters need to be there for this particular simple architecture? Because here 256 units are there in the hidden layer. In this output layer, 10 units are there. So we need 256 need to be connected with these 256 neurons should be connected with 10 neurons of these. Hence, it should be, I will write here 256 into 10 plus 10. Why this 10? Why this 10? Because again bias value for each of the output layer. Okay. Why dense should be clear to you. Why feed forward neural network has dense connections? Because every neuron of the hidden layer is connected with every other neuron of the next layer or the previous layer. Okay. So the same computations, whatever we have done in the previous case, right? 256 number of hidden units are there in the hidden layer, and input size has 28 cross 28. So it comes out to be 784 multiplied by 256 plus 256. When you add up, it comes out to be this value. Similarly, 256 multiplied by number of units in the first hidden layer are 256. Number of units in the output layer are 10. So 256 into 10 plus 10 comes out to be this much. Right? So we will see for this simple example, how do I be able to reduce the number of learnable parameters which are required in case we use convolutional neural network. We will come back to this slide. Again, we will take the same architecture, that is input size as 28 cross 28. And we will see we may not require so many parameters, may not be required to learn, right? So it will be much less than this number. We will discuss that. But before that, we need to discuss how what is convolutional neural network, right? So convolutional neural network, in this we do have some operation that is a well-known operation that is known as convolution. So convolution is a mathematical operation on two different functions, f and g, which produces the third function. Okay. So we need to understand some terms in CNN, convolutional neural network. So the first term is filter or the kernel, right? Many authors, they do say it as a kernel, or we may also alternatively call it as a filter. What is the role of filter or kernel? It is to extract features from the images. Okay. In the initial convolutional layer, we may be able to extract some hidden representation of my input image. For example, we may be able to compute some of the low level features. For example, we may be able to recognize a horizontal line, vertical line, and so on from the images. Whereas with moving or with next convolutional layers, what we can do is we can be able to, or it can be able to extract the high level features. So those high level features will be maybe some parts of the object. Okay, for example, if I say in the input image, if in the first layer, it should be able to extract the first convolutional layer should be able to extract some lines like this. Okay, second convolution layer may be able to extract some high level as compared to these low level features. For example, if in case of if I'm recognizing MNIST data set, okay, if I'm trying to classify whether my digit is belongs to which class, whether it belongs to 0th class, 1st class, and so on, right? So my first hidden layer should be able to extract these low level features, whereas my second hidden layer may be able to extract some. Next convolutional layer should be able to extract some high level features such as these. Okay, we will discuss in detail how the first layer and second layer convolutional layer are able to extract the features. But the idea should be clear to you by this time. It should be able to extract some of the features from the input data, right? So how it performs or how it computes or how it is able to extract the features, it is based on this theory, that is it moves the kernel over the entire data or an entire input image from left to right and top to bottom. It convolves it, that means it computes the dot product with subregions of the input data. Okay, we will see with the example how this convolution takes place. Whenever I try to convolve a kernel or a filter over the with the image, how it is able to compute this dot product of my kernel with the image. The next term, most commonly used term in convolutional neural network is activation map. When you convolve this kernel over the image, you will get some output image. Okay, so that output image we say it as an activation map or the feature map, right? Getting it? So what we have, we do have the input image. And I have the kernel. Okay, I have the input image. This is my input image and this is my kernel. So when I convolve this kernel over this particular image, okay, so what it will do is it first keeps this kernel or this subregion, right? And it computes, it performs dot matrix. First value of kernel is multiplied with first value of this input. Similarly, second will be, and all values will be summed up. So this entire 3x3 of the input image will give me one output pixel. Let's say X. Okay. Now this kernel has, we have like kept it or like laid over the input image, and we computed the convolved or the dot product of this kernel with this input image. It gives me X. X will be some number. Okay, as such we don't have any numbers over here, but X will be some number. Similarly, this kernel, what it will do is it will move from the first, it will leave the first column and it will be moved from left to right. Now it will perform dot product of this kernel or this subregion of the input image, and it performs the dot product. It performs the dot product and it gives me, suppose this particular convolution will give me Y. Again, Y is a number. Like this, this kernel will be moved from left to right. Once we have reached, because in this example we reached to the right side. Now, as we left one column at a time, and this kernel has shifted from left to right. Once it has reached the right side, rightmost side, now what it will do is it will start from the next row. Now my kernel will overlay on this particular sub-image, and again it computes, and again it produces some result of dot product, let's say Z, and so on. Okay, so this is my input image kernel, which is sort of, it is moving from, it is convolving or it is performing dot matrix or the subregion, and once we compute the dot matrix, it will move to the next, it will move to produce the next pixel value of the output image. So we say this as an output image. How we got output image? We got output image by dot matrix, by performing this dot matrix of kernel and input image. It produced me output. Hence we say activation map as it is the output volume which is formed by sliding the filter over the image. Correct? Now we have depth. So how many times, or once we move from, let me go to that example only. Once we complete, let me draw here. When I perform, this is my kernel, this is my input image, right? When I perform dot matrix between this and this, it produces some activation map. that this activation map is nothing but my output. Fine. Once this kernel has rolled on this particular input image, okay, subregion wise, first it will compute, like I have already explained, right? Like it will move from left to right and top to bottom, and it tries to complete this activation map, right? So this activation map is nothing but my output image, right? So with one kernel, we produce one output. Similarly, if I convolve using K1, it produced me one output. Suppose if I take one more kernel and I try to perform this dot matrix between this and this, it will result me one more activation function. Correct? It will result me one more activation map, right? So these two, this is also output which is performed or which is computed by convolving my kernel 1 or input image. Okay. Whereas this is also output image which is performed or which is computed by convolving my K2, that is second filter over the entire image, and it gave two different activation functions. Okay. So now these two activation function will form the input to my next layer. Fine. So as I say, this will be my this will be my input to my next layers. Definitely this is the output at this particular stage, but this will be the input for the next layers, right? Hence it is very important to learn what is this depth it produces, how much is the depth it produces in the convolution layer. When we perform convolution layer, when we perform on one kernel, it produces one activation. That means depth is 1. Like this, if I perform convolution using 5 different kernels, then my depth will be increased. Instead of 1, I will be getting 5. Okay. So depth of the output image, always it depends on the number of kernels that we are applying on our input image. It should be kernels. Okay. Hence depth will be equals to depth here depth is nothing but depth of the output image that it is producing. So it is equal to number of filters. Next is stride. Stride is, for example, in the previous case, I said leave first convolve my input image, convolve the kernel over the input image, this subregion, and move to the next row. Leave this column and move to the next column. Again, you perform on this particular subregion. Again, once you compute the convolution value, again now shift to the next column. Okay, this is nothing but stride. Right? How many columns we are moving? How many columns? Not we. How many columns we are moving from left to right, or the kernel is moving from left to right to produce the convolution. Right? So here the stride means the main objective is to produce the smaller output volumes. If S is equals to 2, that means stride is equals to 2, number of operations that we are performing are going to be less, definitely. Because at this particular time, what we will be doing is the filter will be shifted by 2 pixels as it convolves around the input volume. So the size of the image keeps on reducing as we increase the stride value. Suppose stride value is 1. Okay, so input image, the produced output image will reduce to some extent. But if I increase the number of the stride rate, my output image, whatever it is producing, okay, that will be reduced further. We will see with an example how it works. When I keep stride as 1, when I keep stride as higher number. Okay. Next is padding. Padding the input image with 0 across it. Fine. This we need it when I don't want to lose the spatial resolution of my input image, or when I don't want to when I want to perform convolution operation on the outer edges as well, outer of the image. For example, I will explain this with the help of example. I do have some example in coming slides. Okay. So next we do have convolutional neural network. These are the important building blocks of CNN. First one is input layer. Second one is convolutional layer. Third one is fully connected layer. And the last one is output layer. Let's try to understand first the convolutional layer. We know the input layer. Input layer is, suppose it depends on the size of the input. Okay. So let's move to the second layer, that is convolutional layer. Consider the following 6x6 input image. This is my input image, and I want to perform convolution operation with the help of this 3x3 filter. Correct? So let's see how it works. What I need to do is I will be multiplying this with first pixel value of my input with first value of my kernel. Similarly, this I will multiply by this. This I will multiply with this number. Similarly, this with this. This with this. This, and this. That means I am keeping this. I am going to keep this entire kernel on this subregion, of my input image, and I performs dot product of this kernel and this subregion, and it gives me it produces some output. When I perform dot product between kernel and this subregion, it will produce me some output, right? Let's see that. For example, I have only shown the subregion that I have highlighted over here. I've only shown the subregion, right? So this subregion, this kernel has this kernel we are producing, like we are going to perform dot product between this kernel and this subregion. And as I explained, this 3 into 1 will be 3, 0 into 0 will be 0, 1 into -1 will be this, and so on. So it gives this particular matrix will be produced, okay, when I convolve it. So I will be taking summation of this to produce the output. Okay, to produce one of the pixel value for the output image. So when I add all the values, it comes out to be -5. Correct? So -5 will be my first pixel of the output image. In a similar way, once we have convolved over this subregion, now what I need to do? Once we have convolved over this particular subregion, now this will be shifted over the next subregion like this. Now again on this 3x3, perform the convolution and get the summation. And what it will do is, again it will produce some value. The resultant, the first convolution value was was the first pixel values of the output image. Now next convolution result will be shifted to the second, will be my second pixel value of the output image like this. I will leave the stride rate here. I have considered it as 1. Okay. My kernel has performed convolution on this subregion. Next, I will leave one column and I will shift. Now I will again perform on this. Again, I will shift. Now again, I will perform on this and so on till I reach the last. Once we reach the rightmost, as I explained earlier, now I need to increase the row number. Now I will start from this, like this. Okay.
Like in some cases, if it doesn't match the order of the main matrix, the size of kernel. For example, if size of kernel is 3 cross 3 and the size of image is 8 cross 8, so it will not be able to cover all the matrix.
Yes, the size of the kernel need to be taken care of. Okay. Next. Here it is with next one. Okay, when we perform convolution operation of this kernel over the input image, so it produces this result. And when I take the summation, this is my result of the second convolution operation. So like this, when we perform on the entire data, on the entire input image, when we perform the convolution operation, I will be getting this as my result matrix. Okay, that is output image. Fine. And definitely after this, what we will be doing is we will be getting the, we will be performing some kind of, this is the sort of pre-activation we did it. And again, we need to perform some kind of activation on it, on top of it. That I'm not going to cover because we have already covered it. So I have not put that in today's class. Okay, in today's PPT. Like this, when we perform the convolutions, we are going to get with each input, with each kernel, when it performs the convolution on that particular given input image, it produces the output image. We have seen in the example also. For example, with this 6 cross 6 input, when I apply 3 cross 3 filter, it has resulted, what is the output dimension here? Output dimension, it resulted into this 4 cross 4 output dimension. Like this, with each input image, with each set of kernel, we will be getting some output image. So that dimension definitely depends on dimension. I mean to say dimension of this this output image. It definitely depends on two things. The first one is input image, and the second one is my kernel. Let's see how this output image depends on my kernel and input image. So output is computed here. Width W2 is width of my output image. H2 is my height of my output image. D2 is depth of my output image. W2, H2 and D2 are width, height and depth of output. W1, H1 and D1 here are not mentioned, but D1 is my depth of the input image. Okay, so W1, H1, D1 is representing input volume size. Similarly, W2, H2, D2 will represent output volume size. Given input volume size and kernel size, okay, it produces the output image of W2, H2, W2 cross H2 cross D2 output volume size. So how it is computed? It is computed based on this particular formula. Okay, for example, W2 is equals to W1 minus F plus 2P divided by S plus 1. Here W1, you know the value W1 means, right, in width of input image. F means the kernel size. Okay, kernel size, definitely width of kernel size. And P here is the padding. Padding, what is the effect of using padding and no padding? We will discuss that later. Okay, If we perform some padding, I need to write down that value as well. Okay. Here in this given example, we have not performed any sort of padding. Hence, padding is 0. P value is 0. Okay. And S is my stride rate. Stride rate is when we convolve on this sub-region, how many columns or how many rows to leave and for the next competitions or next calculations. Okay. So that is stride rate. Again, stride rate, S is 1, P is 0 for the previous case. Let's compute using the example. My input size was 6 cross 6 and depth is definitely 1. Okay, no need to write. If no depth is given, that means it is 1. Okay, and kernel size is, I think, 3 cross 3. Yes, it is 3 cross 3. 3 cross 3, right? This is my input. This is my filter, that is kernel size. And what I need to do is I need to produce the output. Output can be produced, again, we need width of the output, we need height of the output, and we also need depth of the output. How do I compute width? Here, width of the image, output image, can be computed with input image width, that is 6, minus this kernel width, that is 3, plus 2 into P. P here is 0. I have not padded any values, so it is 0. Stride is 1 plus 1. So it comes out to be 3 upon 3, definitely it will be 4. And H will also comes out to be same, plus 2 into 0 plus 1. So it comes, height of my output image is also 4. Depth is here is, because I have applied only one kernel, number of kernels are only 1, so depth of the output image is 1. Okay, you can see, you can cross check. We have got the exactly same output image as we have done the calculation. Volume of output image is 4 cross 4 cross 1. So it is the same. It is 4 cross 4 cross, and depth here only one kernel we have applied. Okay, convolution we have performed on the input image, hence we have got depth as 1. Okay, now in this input image, just take 2 minutes of time and try to add some padding. So if I don't add any padding values, so what is the resultant output image? Definitely with 6 cross 6, I am getting shrinked image. Okay, my input image is reducing. Size of the input image is reducing, right? Width and height. Let's see. If you add 2 rows, first row in the one row at the first row and one row in the last as a last row. Similarly, one column as the first column and the one column as the last column. When you perform, and you all will add value. What will be the value of these pixels? These pixels will be with 0. Okay, when you perform this, fine, you will get different output volume. Okay, in this, what is happening? We are producing output whenever we were performing that 3 cross 3 kernel. Whenever we are performing dot matrix on this subregion, we are skipping this first row, last row, first column, and last column. We are not able to perform on that particular input rows and columns, first row and last row, first column and last column. That is why my output image was shrinking. Why? Because when I put this kernel over this, so I was actually performing the value for this particular pixel, not for this particular pixel. Why I am not able to perform on this particular pixel? Because for if I want to perform on this particular pixel, this 0 need to be overlaid on this particular 3, right? So for that sake, I need to perform this computation. So let me redraw. Are you getting it? When we perform this convolution using this particular kernel on this particular input image, on this particular subregion, we are actually computing I start computing some pixel values. Okay, the first pixel value I'm computing for this convolution operation on this particular pixel. Okay, center pixel. If I need to compute on this particular pixel, that is why I said we are not able to perform without padding. We are not able to perform convolution on the first row, last row, first column and last column. Okay, so for that sake, what I need to do is I need to if I don't want to reduce I don't want to get the reduced output. In that case, what I need to do is I want to perform convolution on this particular pixel, from this particular pixel onwards. No, not I don't want to start on from this. So what I need to do is I need to add, as I explained, first row, last row, first column and last column. I need to add some padding. Padding means some 0 values will be added, so that it should not be any effect, right? So now this 1 will be multiplied with 0. It will give me 0, plus this 0 will be multiplied with again 0, gives 0. This minus 1 will be this, again 0, and so on, right? So this 0 will be computed on this 3, so and so on. So same operation will be done, but instead of getting the output image for this particular, from this particular pixel, we will get the output image will be started from this particular pixel. Like this, if I perform the padding, if I keep, then I will be able to retain the size of the input image in my output. You may take it as an homework and you can try for the same given input image 6x6 and with the same kernel, you need to get the output image. You will not get 4x4. Okay. Next one is that was the convolution operation that we discussed. And in each convolution operation, we are performing convolution of my kernel or the subregion, and we are getting some output image. Fine. Pooling layer, what it does is it performs scanning of the input image, and it tries to reduce the size of the input image. Correct. So reducing the spatial size of the convolved feature. Definitely the output, whatever output that convolution operation has produced, will be input to this pooling layer. Okay. Usually first we perform convolution operation, convolution layer, then we will have pooling layer, and then we will have fully connected layer. Okay. And then you can have this 3 layers. Again, next 3 layers, right? Convolution, pooling, and fully connected. Again, you can have convolution, pooling, and fully connected. Again, so on. Like this, you can stack n number of convolution, pooling, and fully connected layers. Convolution and pooling will be stacked many times, and at the end, we will have fully connected layer. Okay, why? What is the importance of fully connected layer? We will see to it. But first, let's see what is pooling layer. Pooling layer, it basically performs the scanning on the input image, and it helps to reduce the spatial size of the convolved feature. Okay, why I am saying convolved feature? Why not on input image? Because the input image is nothing but it is the convolved image, convolved feature now after performing the convolution operation. Okay, so it is used to, this pooling layer is used to decrease the computation power. Okay, why it is able to decrease the computation power which is required otherwise? Because when I get the high resolution image, okay, size of the input image is very high, then the computation may require high power as compared to if we have lesser number of or reduced input size, right? So what we do have two kinds of max pooling and average pooling. And among these max pooling and average pooling, the max pooling is very most frequently used pooling layer. Okay, the only difference here is in max pooling, it selects the largest from a pool of elements. Okay, given set of numbers. In max pooling, it chooses the one which is having high value, whereas average pooling, it computes the average and it takes the average from the from set of input elements. Let's see with an example how it works. Let's take this. Okay, first what we need to do is we need to perform convolution for this given input image. Okay, sorry, max. This question I will give later. This is convolution image. Okay, let's take this max pooling and let's try to perform max pooling on top of this convolved image. Okay, this is what was the resultant of our example, right? That 6 cross 6, when it convolved with 3 cross 3, it produced 4 cross 4 as its output, right? Now we will perform max pooling on this 4 cross 4 and let's see what is the output. Max pool, again, it depends on what is the size of pooling that you are applying. Let's take 2 cross 2. I will take on this, using this 2 cross 2, I will select among these 4 values, I will choose the one which has least value, that is 5. No, sorry, max value, that is 5. Again, I will shift mine. I will start to the on the input image for max pooling. This is the input image, right? I will start by 1 and I will see among these 4 now 2 cross 2 is this, this window. On this minus, with this -4, 0, -2 and 2, what is the output? So among these, we know maximum value is 2, right? Like this, I need to complete all 0, 8, 2, 3. The highest value will come here, that is 8. Like this, with the help of max pooling, what I am doing is I am able to reduce the spatial size of my convolved feature. Initially, the convolved feature was 4 cross 4. Now I am able to reduce it to 3 cross 3. So this is the result of applying max pooling on top of this particular convolved feature. Okay. Now, this is the output that it has produced when I apply max pooling output image. Now, what I will do is I will take this as an input for the next layer. Correct? Try to perform average pooling here. When we perform average pooling on these 4, it comes out to be -2.75. Take 5 minutes of time and try to complete this matrix for me. Next also with a stride rate of 1. Perform on this. I have already performed. On this, you try to perform And next on this particular 2 cross 2 you try to perform. Once we reach rightmost, we know we need to stride it down and again perform on this particular 2 cross 2 subregion on this and so on. Try to complete this. Okay. I have the solution. I will share with you, but first try it. One person has tried, I think. Okay. Let's see. This is the output of average pool, right? For example, -4, 0, 2, -2. Compute the average value, you will get -1. Keep over here, and so on. The next layer is fully connected layer. Fully connected layer is a single layer or a vector which is created from the image. Okay. Usually, as I informed earlier also in the earlier slides, we do have input layer where I am going to give my input image. I do have convolution layer. In convolution layer, I will be applying convolution operation to produce the convolved feature. On that convolved feature or output of the convolution layer, okay, that will be input to my max layer. In my max layer, either max pooling layer, either you in pooling layer you apply max pool or average pool. So what you will get is you will get the resultant output, right? So on that particular output of the output which is performed on or which is obtained by max pool layer, what we need to do is we can now like this we can have set of convolutional pooling layer, convolution pooling layer, convolution pooling layers, and so on. And at the end, what we need to do, what we need to have is we need to have at least one fully connected layer. Why we should have at least one fully connected layer? Because I need to see, for example, in classification, I need to perform I need to tell how many classes, how do I classify the image? How many classes I need? Okay. So for that sake, because my input is in the matrix form, correct? And what I want the result is in the vector form. So what I need to do is I need to take that matrix, whatever matrix that it has produced using pooling layer. I will take that matrix or in the form of suppose in this example it has produced matrix because we have used only one kernel to get the convolution feature map, right? Activation maps. We may have output volume also. In that output volume also, what we need to do is we need to perform the fully connected layer in order to obtain the single layer or vector, which will be created from the image, right? So once we form the vector, we can easily say that suppose I want my output to classify into binary. So first convolution operation, first fully connected layer, what it will have is it simply performs the transformation from matrix to vector or transformation from input image to vector. Once we have transformation of in the form of vector, fully connected vector, I can have one output layer. That output layer will have only two neurons because I want to classify into two classes. Suppose I want to classify into three classes. What I will do is result of max pooling layer. Okay, I will transform into one. I will use at least one fully connected layer to transform that output image of the max pool layer to fully connected layer. Once we have the one vector, then I will connect that particular vector with my output layer. Here you should understand In the previous cases, all connections were dense, were sparse, whereas from this layer onwards, from fully connected layer, the name itself suggests that it is fully connected. That means now we will have dense connections from fully connected layer to the output layer. That will be very dense. Okay, that dense, you already know the meaning. Every neuron will be connected with every neuron of the other layer, right? Like this, I can have n number of, we can have any number of fully connected layers, but usually we do keep 2 or 3 depending on our problem, right? For example, in the fully connected layer, we will stack the results into a single vector. This single vector will be used for the classification of the other images. Okay. For example, whatever result that we obtained at the max pooling layer, I will keep all those in the vector form. How we have transformed. For example, this was the matrix, right? So I will create one vector. Simply, I will copy this 5 first in the first cell, 2 in the next cell, 8 in the next cell, 0 in the next cell. So instead of this, what I will do is I will, instead of this 2 cross 2, 3 cross 3, what I will have is I will have n cross 1. Okay, so my vector will have 5, 2, 8, 0, 2, 3, 0, minus 2 and minus 3. If I apply max pooling, okay, like this. After this, if I need to classify into 10 classes, or if I need to classify my input, whatever input was there, if I need to classify into 10 different classes, I will use 10 different neurons in the output layer. Suppose I need to classify only 2 into 2 classes, I will take only 2 neurons in the output classes, and so on. This is the resultant of fully connected layer, that is vector, which is produced by using average pooling, right? So again, minus 2.73 cross 3, we have converted to n cross 1, correct? Try to do this.
Please repeat the meaning of stride. What is the meaning of stride?
Stride means how many, for example, on this, I will apply max pool. What is the result of max pooling on 2 cross 2?
It will be 7.
It will be 7, right? It will be 7. Now, by how many pixels I will be moving?
Okay, okay.
Okay, that is stride. Now, if I take stride value as 1, first I will compute on 5731. Later on, I will compute 7917. One
That means this will give, that means this will give the output 2 cross 2 matrix.
You are not clear.
I'm asking, it will give the output of 2 cross 2 matrix.
It will definitely give output of, it will perform max pooling on based on 2 cross 2. It will select 2 cross 2 elements, and it takes the maximum value out of those 2 cross 2. And stride means, how do I, someone has already solved, I will check later, but let's try to understand. First, stride is equals to 1. If I take stride equals to 1, first I will perform max pooling on this matrix subregion. The output, you yourself said it should be 7. Next, I will move to next column. Here stride rate is 1. By 1 column, I am moving. Now I After moving one column, I will compute the max pooling off on this particular 2 cross 2. So what should be the result? It should be
Nine, ma'am, nine.
9. Okay. After again stride of 1, now I will compute max pool on these 4 elements, right? So output should be again 9. Once we have reached to the rightmost, now as stride rate is 1, so what I need to do is I will move to the next row and I will compute on this. Like this, you need to compute. Okay. Stride rate 1 means one column or one row I am shifting, striding over. Whereas 2 means, let me check, has someone answered with 2, 7, 9, 9, 7. Yes, it's correct. 9, 7, no, not 9, 7, it should be 9, 8, no? Because max of these is 8. So it should be 7, 9, 9, 8. Okay. So this is the reference that I have referred for today's class. Any doubts, queries? I'm ready to take.
Excuse me, ma'am.
Most of you have done, I think, on either okay. With stride rate as 1 you have computed. I gave you stride rate as 2. So it should be 7998, right? Yes, please.
मैम आपने FNN में 256 क्रॉस 784 प्लस 256 करा था, वो 256 ऐड प्लस किस लिए करा था?
Can you repeat, please? Feed forward
हाँ?
neural network में
आपने 256 क्रॉस 784 करा था ना, टोटल कनेक्शंस पूछे थे जो.
मैम मुझे भी उसमें डाउट था क्योंकि वो टोटल वेट्स होंगे रादर देन टोटल कनेक्शंस. जो आपने बताया था वो टोटल वेट्स में आएगा.
वो वेट्स ही है, कनेक्शंस इज नथिंग बट वेट्स ओनली.
मैम उस कनेक्शंस में बायसेस नहीं ऐड होंगे ना?
इवन बायस से भी कनेक्ट होगा ना, बायस से भी कनेक्ट होगा. बायस वैल्यू विल आल्सो बी कनेक्टेड टू माय आउटपुट, राइट?
मैम इट्स जस्ट लाइक दैट, वो भी एक वेक्टर है तो उसके साथ भी कैलकुलेशन होगी. बस बायस भी तो एक वेक्टर है.
Yes, yes. Bias is also a vector, but that bias value will also be an input, no?
Yes, ma'am. Yes.
And
That's
even
the same thing.
see, even parameters, in parameters, usually most of the authors they do assume only weights, but if we assume biases, then we need to add those plus values. In architecture also, I explained if we have 3 neurons in the input layer and 3 neurons in the output layer or hidden layer, then how do we form the connections? 3 into 3 plus 3. Why plus 3 is there? Because one bias to each of the neuron of the hidden layer. Correct? Even if you have followed or if you have completed practical work, then you can use, suppose you have used that model, okay, designed the model, then you use one function. You might have done that model dot summary. Okay, you will get total number of learnable parameters and use, because we have used 28 cross 28 as my input image and keep 256 as our number of hidden layers. And when you perform model dot summary function, it gives you exactly how many parameters that need to be learned. So like this, you can cross verify. Okay. Any other doubt? Okay, in that case, Sakshi.
Hello.
Yes.
What should be the value of the kernel, or what will the value of kernel should be taken while doing this convolution? And second, what is the significance of stride? Should it be minimum, or we should take the average or maximum value of stride so that there is no loss in information?
Stride, we usually go for 1. Okay. And what was your first question?
The value of kernel, how the value of kernel is decided?
Okay.
Originally
Value
we have
of the
taken was
kernel.
0.
Yes, I got your question. First, the value of the kernel, we are not going to keep the value of the kernel, give the exact value of the kernel. See here, the problem in feed-forward neural network was that we need to learn those W and B's, right? Here, the learnable parameters are the kernel values only. We again will initialize those kernel values will be initialized randomly, and then with back propagation, what should be the exact value of the kernels that will be learned automatically. With a back propagation, that will be done. As we initialize weights and biases values, right? And in the same way, we do initialize the kernel values randomly, and later on those values will be learned. So they are the learnable parameters in convolutional neural network. Previously, before deep learning, we used to hand code the kernel values, right? So for edge detection, we know there are fixed number of kernels which will work. If I roll over my entire image, I am going to get my edges which are present in the input image. So those were fixed. But here we are not taking those hand-coded kernel values. Okay.
And the value of stride, if we are using large value, then whether the information will be lost, or there will no effect on the information?
Definitely the information will be there will be some information loss, but usually we do take S is equals to 1. Okay, with many kernels, if you are putting on many kernels, then it is okay to apply higher stride rate also. That is not an issue. Ultimately, we want to learn the hidden representations, right? So we may, with some kernels, we may not be able to learn one of the pixel value, okay? But values hidden representation. But in with some other kernel operation, convolution operation, with some other kernel, we may be able to, right?
And padding is required after convolution or after max pooling?
Padding is done before convolution operation. Padding is done before convolution operation. That is why I have even showed the equation. How do I compute the output volume before output volume of the convolution image? Okay. When we perform convolution operation on the given input image, how do I compute the output volume? It depends. I said it depends on 2 factors, mainly on 2 factors. One is size of the kernel. The second one is size of the input image. But definitely, if we have seen some example. One example we have seen with 6x6, it is able to reduce with 6x6 as input image, 3x3 as my kernel size. It is able to reduce the size of my output image. Correct. With padding, we may not be able to lose any of those. We may be able to perform some computations on our rows, first row, last row, first column, and last column as well. That is the advantage of padding, adding padding.
Ma'am, I have a question on padding.
Okay.
When you add one padding, it means that the input image grows by 2 verticals and 2 horizontals?
Because I want to retain the size of the input image same as size of the output image, and I want to perform padding on each of the pixel of my input image. When you do this exercise at home today, like when you perform padding on the input image, 6x6 input image, add one row in the add one row at the beginning of and at the end. Similarly, one column at the front and one column at the back. So when you perform this, you will be able to perform convolutions on the entire image, on all the pixels of the entire image. Okay, like this, and as well as you will be able to produce size of the volume same as size of the input image.
But with the padding, the input image is growing, no?
It retains the size of the input image will remain same as size of the output image will same as size of the input image. It will not grow. But definitely you keep higher padding, it may also. But that is not an advantage one to keep higher padding rate, because I just want to cover all my outer values, outer pixel values. That is why we have used padding.
Okay, thank you.
Is any other queries? Sakshi?
Yes, ma'am.
If we are done with, I am done with today's class. If any further queries, I will take.
Okay, ma'am. So is there anyone having further doubts? Ma'am, I don't think there are more doubts now.
Okay, fine. Thank you, Sakshi. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone. I have posted the attendance link in the chat window. So submit your attendance within the next 10 minutes. After that, we'll close the attendance form. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Ma'am Sakshi, is it possible to get the PowerPoints? It would be much easier to go to rather than the whole video.
Okay, I'll ask ma'am if possible, she'll share it.
Okay.
I need to take permission from her first.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Welcome.